Good evening and welcome back. Tonight I have for you another story. This is Chapter 3 from Tales of the Kingdom by David and Karen Maines. Chapter 3, The Apprentice Juggler. The story so far is that Hero has brought his little brother out of Enchanted City to the Great Park, where he's met Caretaker and Mercy. In Chapter 2, an orphan hunter came looking for the boys, but was instead herself convinced to stay in Great Park. So now, the Apprentice Juggler. There was a juggler in Great Park, the land of the king, who wanted to perform with the juggling master's troupe more than anything else in the whole world. But he had something terrible hidden in his heart, a secret he had shared with no one. The apprentice juggler was sure he would shame the troupe in tonight's performance. He knew he would drop a baton during the pyramid cascade. Then the juggling master would know his secret, and he would lose his place in the juggling troupe. A knot in the pit of his stomach felt like a tug-of-war between giants. Standing in the middle of the practice field, the apprentice juggler warmed his hands in a patch of morning sunlight. He loosened his fingers with limbering exercises. He started tossing balls in a basic crisscross pattern. The apprentice juggler concentrated. He could hear the words of the juggling master's first lesson. Teach the balls to dance. The word ball is from the French. It means to dance. Make the balls dance. The balls did dance in the apprentice juggler's hands. As long as he worked alone, he did fine. In this last year as an apprentice, he even learned to toss rings, batons, clubs, and eggs, unboiled ones even. He could spin plates on sticks. He could balance umbrellas on his forehead and shoulders and hands all at the same time. He put 3 balls into motion. Throw, throw, catch, catch. Throw, throw, catch, catch. No one knew he was battling his inner count. No one knew that a different rhythm was ticking in his heart than in his hands. It was only when the apprentice juggler worked with other student jugglers, or when he did a routine with the troupe, that things went wrong. He tripped, he dropped batons. The others thought this was because he was new at juggling, but the young man knew his inner count was just plain different. He didn't want anyone to know his secret, particularly the juggling master. To work with the troupe was the glorious goal of every apprentice. The balls danced in the apprentice juggler's hands. He switched to the 2 in one hand. He practiced showers. He picked up 2 clubs, tested their weight. He tossed one high. It turned twice in the air, a double. He started a 3rd club with an outside foot kick-up. It turned twice in the air. Soon even the clubs were dancing. He guarded himself against his inner rhythm. One of the other fellows was juggling clubs. He moved closer to the apprentice juggler and started passing. 6 clubs now looped into the air. The young men timed out loud, pass, self, self, pass, self, self, pass, self, self. So far so good, thought the apprentice juggler. If only he could count out loud as he was now, but every juggler knew that that was the sign of an amateur. Very good, shouted the juggling master. Excellent work this morning, and I have wonderful news. The king will be present at tonight's great celebration. We will be performing for him. The whole troupe cheered, but the apprentice juggler's heart fell to the pit of his stomach, where the tug-of-war was raging. He had juggled at great celebrations before with the other students. Tonight he was supposed to solo, then appear with the troupe in the finale. What if he failed before the king? It would serve him right for keeping this hidden thing to himself. All he had ever dreamed of was seeing the king smile in pleasure at his juggling. He had even imagined the king walking over to him and saying, "Well done, young man. You have a special gift." The juggling master's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Let's practice the finale." The troupe moved into position for the pyramid cascade. 4 jugglers stood in a row. A signal was shouted. Hup! All counted inwardly. 1, 2, up! 3 jugglers hopped up on the shoulders of the first 4. The signal again. Hup! 1, 2, 3, up! A hand grasp, a scramble, a hop. The 2 apprentices climbed to the very peak. The clubs began looping upwards, turning and spinning up the pyramid. 8 came from the bottom, 6 passed from the middle. The apprentices turned the rising clubs back down towards the outside men. It was quick work, but simple, as long as the count was kept. The apprentice juggler knew that all 9 members of the troupe were timing inwardly. Throw, throw, catch, catch. Throw, throw, catch, catch. With horror, he realized his count was off again. He had been silently timing throw, throw, catch, throw. He caught himself and changed his pace, but it was a loud danger signal. Should he tell the juggling master? But how could he bear to have his place taken from him and given to another? What would happen if he followed his inner count? What disaster would befall him? With sagging shoulders, the apprentice juggler walked home from the practice field. Later, with lagging feet, he made his way to the huge clearing in deepest forest. Here the great celebration always took place, surrounded by the circle of sacred flames. The subjects of the king were beginning to gather in inmost circle. The sacred flames had been lit, and they flickered and danced in a huge ring. Rangers in their dark blue cloaks stood posted around the flames. The music of celebration had begun. The apprentice juggler watched as celebrants walked through the gateway of flame into inmost circle. Making entrance, the ceremony was called. He saw each one become real as he or she did so, for the sacred flames showed persons not as they seemed, but as they truly were. All disguises were gone. The laughter and the music and the joy within the flames called to the apprentice juggler, but he held himself back. How could he make entrance with this hidden thing in his heart? Wouldn't his secret be revealed when he became real? The funny old caretaker walked into the flames. His form dimmed for a moment in the bright light. Then he made entrance. He became tall, straight, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark blue cloak and silver clasp of a ranger. Caretaker was not what he seemed. He had become ranger commander, chief protector of the park, and intimate adviser to the king himself. The apprentice juggler squirmed. He remembered how Caretaker had found him as a young child, hungry and abandoned, and had taken him to Mercy, who had loved and nursed him. He remembered how Caretaker and Mercy hated dark and hidden things. He decided to wait for the juggling master and tell him the hidden secret that his inner count was different and dangerous to the troupe. The apprentice juggler would ask him to choose another for the finale. It was the only way. A sob shook his shoulders. Never more the feel of the batons or the thrill of tumbling objects. Never more the weight of the ball popping into his palm and then popping out. Never more the wonderful rhythm of the troupe. They would give his place to another. What would become of him? Where would he belong? The young man knew he would never make a good baker or gardener or forester. He couldn't stand singing or dancing. He had absolutely no desire to be a ranger. The only thing he had ever wanted to do was make balls and clubs and rings and batons and eggs, unboiled, dance. In anger, the apprentice juggler tossed the balls he held. This time he kept his own count. Sure enough, the balls moved at awkward intervals. The juggling was not smooth. The rising and falling rhythms were hazardous. He had to tell his secret. He would never be like the other jugglers. A beggar was approaching the circle of fire. The man wore a brown cloak with a hood that covered his face. He carried a staff and limped. "Alms! Alms!" he cried. Please click on the bell for part 2.